Well, hi everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are and where you see our screens. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Boost Efficiency. Our goal for the next 30 minutes is to show you how you can boost your lab's efficiency. But before we can actually start, I'd like to run through a few organizational things with you. First of all, we will record this session. So if you would like to watch the webinar or parts of it again, you can do so. It'll soon be available on the Miele Professional YouTube channel. We would like to answer all of your questions. Please share all your questions with us. For that, please use the Q&A function of this meeting and simply type your question there. We have reserved some minutes at the end of our session to answer them. If we cannot answer all of them, we will definitely do that later in written form. And one advice, if you have any issues with the sound or with the presentation, try logging out and back in to refresh your connection. In almost all cases, that helps. Last but not least, we will be conducting the webinar in English, obviously. But if you feel more comfortable having subtitles in any other language, you can easily enable a live translation. Simply click on the buttons, it's shown here on the slide, and please bear in mind, the subtitles will only be produced for the voice of us presenting. The slides will still remain in English. But now we are good to go. And welcome again to the webinar Boost Efficiency, Proven Strategies for Streamlined Glassware Cleaning. Well, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Dennis Restmeyer, and I'm responsible for under-counter lab washes at Miele Professional within the medical and the laboratory segment. I've been roughly working in this field for around 15 years now and still genuinely enjoy the variety and challenges that come with it. Outside of work, I like to spend time with my family and listen to music. And if you ever go skiing or visit a mountain bike park, there's a good chance that you might run into me or my kids there. Simon, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, of course. My name is Simon Schulte, and I'm the Global Product Manager responsible for the technical accessories of our devices, and I am with Miele since 2020. Outside of work, I really like playing soccer and going jogging. Now the stage is yours, Dennis.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, let's jump right in. So the main question I would like to enter this webinar with is, why do laboratories have to focus on efficiency? Well, and when we look at today's laboratory environment, one thing becomes very, very clear. It's heavily shaped by increasing cost pressure. And across all areas, costs have been rising significantly in recent years. If we summarize the key drivers, a few topics keep coming up again and again. We see staffing shortages, rising wages, and overall increasing personnel costs. At the same time, laboratories are expected to deliver high-quality results, often with tighter budgets. Another major factor is inefficiency. Things like equipment downtime or underutilization are often the silent killers of productivity. So today, more than ever, laboratories need to focus on operational excellence and cost efficiency as a core priority. To better understand this cost pressure, let's break it down into 4 key areas where we at Miele think that we can actively support you. First, the operating costs. These include process efficiency, as well as the consumption of water, energy, and chemicals. Second, investment costs, which depend heavily on your equipment setup, utilization, and service strategy. Third, personnel costs. Typically, this is the largest cost factor in most laboratories. And to be clear, this is not about reducing headcount. It is about enabling your staff to focus on high-value work like research and analysis, rather than routine tasks such as glassware cleaning. And finally, we have a look on complexity costs. These are often underestimated. They depend on factors like organizational structure, data availability, and process transparency. Let's have a look on the operating costs. How can Miele help you reducing these? One key lever is the smart system design that enables smooth and supportive workflows. For example, features like a chamber lighting and a glass door allow users to visually monitor the process at any time. This creates transparency and gives an additional sense of security, even though many parameters are already monitored by sensors in the background. In addition, intuitive user interfaces and clearly structured controls make it easy to operate the machine and adapt it to your needs. Our so-called show me how functions guide users step by step through smaller tasks or troubleshooting. And this is saving the time and reducing dependency on service support, actually. Finally, the ability to switch languages instantly at any point of the process or in any menu makes operation easier in international lab environments. Finally, well, let me summarize. Excellent cleaning performance is never the result of a single feature. It's always the outcome of a perfectly coordinated system. Reliable, consistent cleaning results are essential for efficient lab operations, because every time you need to repeat a cleaning cycle, you lose time, resources, and productivity. Finally, that's why our focus is on delivering stable, reproducible results. You can rely on the process and avoid unnecessary work. Finally, I brought a few examples with me. For example, the no-welded laser chamber and the variable speed pump, which just adapts its speed to the actual process step. So you always got the right rotational speed for the process step that is currently ongoing. And we've got a very fine quadruple filter combination, which also helps reducing downtime by blockages of particles. Finally, talking about versatility, we could say versatility is the program in all of our machines. The wide range of programs enables customers to use a program that is optimally tailored to their application and soiling, as well as the type of quantity and of lab glassware. There will be no more waste of time, water, or chemicals. And with the introduction of our new undercounter series, the Expert line, we were also able to introduce a so-called standard Echo program. That's an Echo version of the well-known standard program, and it's just a little bit longer in terms of running time, but provides even lower water and energy consumption with the same reliability. And if we have a look on the programs, they are made for a wide range of requirements. For basic applications, we've got dedicated programs. We've got programs for specific applications like anorganica or organica, and for certain materials and geometries like plastics and pipettes. So every user finds what he needs for his process. Drying is another important step that is often underestimated. With our EcoDry system, we already achieve very efficient drying results. And with Dry Plus, we take it one step further, delivering even higher performance. The key benefit here is that you can often eliminate additional post-processing steps, such as manual drying or the use of drying cabinets. And that, again, saves both time and labor. Today, we can also a little bit proudly speak of the most sustainable lab washer series that we've ever built. Besides the fantastic news in terms of programs, which we already heard, we have in all the machines the guarantee that they are tested for at least 15,000 operating hours. That's really a long time. And talking about spare parts availability, we can just imagine that if a machine is launched in 2025, we'll have a marketing time of, let's say, 6 years. The spare part availability is then given an additional 15 years. So that means that if the marketing starts in 2025, then the additional time is plus 15 years. So that means that the user can have spare parts available for his machine until the year 2045. And that's really a quite long time. And what goes along is a lot of reliable work results lay ahead, plannable and secure. And what I would like to say, in our DNA, building reliable and sustainable appliances is our standard and not just a marketing trend. It's in our DNA and has always been.
Now I come to the topic how Miele can help reducing investment costs. And there are two cost factors to consider here. The first one is the initial investment for automated cleaning. This is of course higher than for manual cleaning, but you can save a lot of time and resources, for example, water, energy, and chemicals. And this then leads to savings over the whole product lifetime. And when you compare this to manual cleaning, the break-even point is in less than 2 years. But we will go into more detail about this later in the webinar. The second point in this context is the investment cost for lab glassware. Here, the initial costs are relatively low, but if you keep requiring new lab glassware, the costs can quickly add up, and that leads me to the question, how can we minimize the investment costs for my lab glassware? And here I've brought 4 tips for you. The first one is that the lab glassware should be placed on the load carrier in such a way that they do not extend below or too high above the load carrier. And this then avoids blocking the spray arm or breaking the glass. The second tip is that you should place the lab glassware on the corresponding mounts and holders to prevent the glassware from toppling over. The third tip is to prevent the lab glassware from touching each other to prevent glass breakage. And the last tip is that the lab glassware should not extend over the edge of the load carrier to prevent the lab glass from crashing with the device. In addition to these 4 tips for preventing glass breakage, we should also ask ourselves, how can we extend the overall lifetime of our lab glassware? And this then brings me to the next slide. We have gentle cleaning due to only short contact times with alkaline cleaning agents, so there will be no glass corrosion and detachment of the lab glass labeling. We also have defined process parameters to avoid unnecessary stress on the glass. For example, we have no detachment of glass pieces because of too high temperatures, and we have always the right temperatures in all program phases. The third point here is that the process chemicals are not overdosed, and we also ensure the right water quality. And the last point on this slide is then that we ensure material-friendly and stable positioning of the items in our lab washers with our easy load system, so there will be no wear and risk of glass breakage because of high mechanical stress. So in conclusion, you can say that we can have a long lifetime of our lab glassware, and this then leads to reduced replacement costs per year. Now I want to go into detail about our easy load system. EasyLoad system is available for all Miele lab washers, and as its name says, it's easy to load, thanks to its guided and centered lab glass positioning by the holding grid, as you could see in the picture on the left side. With a special designed nozzle, you can make the most of the space and of the loading height, as you can see in the picture in the middle, plus you have no need for height adjustment because of the holding grid. The third benefit is that you have a reliable cleaning even when the lab glass rests on the top of the nozzle. And that's because the nozzle is very specially designed so that the water still reaches every corner of the lab glass. So how do I use the EasyLoad modules? And that's really easy too. At first, you screw in the special designed nozzle into the module. Then you add the holder rack, and then the module is already ready to use. So you have now seen how easy it is to install and also use the EasyLoad system. Let's now take a look how this affects then the personnel costs. And this brings me to the next chapter. How Miele can help reducing personnel costs. And the first point is pretty obvious. A basic lab washer is significantly faster than manual cleaning. And if you would like to have some more details about this, I highly recommend the first webinar, which is available on YouTube. The second point is that the time saved by not having to clean manually can be used for other value-adding or more important activities. The third point is that we have no negative influence on following processes due to residual contamination. And the last point is that we can ensure simple and also fast loading and unloading of the easy load modules because of its automatic centering and because there's no height adjustment needed. In conclusion, we can say that these efficient processes help reducing personnel costs.
Well, then let's take a closer glance at the complexity costs. And to reduce complexity, automation and reliability are the key. One example is our automatic dosing system, which ensures that exactly the required amount of process chemicals is being dosed at precisely the right time. Here we see an example of one of our dosing lenses, and in the orange marked area there are lots of sensors, so-called read contacts, and they measure the fill level at any point of time, at any part of the process. And users can even define when they want to be notified. For example, 30 cycles before a canister runs empty. So you always stay in control and avoid process interruptions. Just show you the example. So if the fill level reaches a mark that is enough for 30 cycles, you can be notified via the user interface. Overall, this simplifies handling, reduces errors, and increases process reliability. This is complemented by our fully coordinated portfolio of process chemicals, because only when a machine and chemicals are perfectly aligned, you can achieve consistently optimal cleaning results. This reduces complexity for the user and ensures a high level of process stability. Another important aspect is comprehensive process monitoring. Our systems include multiple sensors that continuously monitor critical parameters. This helps to detect deviations early and prevent errors. For example, the conductivity measurement, which is available in selected models, ensures that no unwanted chemical residues remain in the system. In short, better monitoring means fewer errors, less rework, and ultimately lower costs. No matter which machine type, our focus is on minimizing service times and maximizing availability. Talking about our newly introduced Expert Line series, we can talk of an improved insertion of the machines, an enhanced installation process, and a better and easier connection of the devices. We came up with our own commissioning wizard, which cuts down the installation time dramatically. We've got a better increased housing handling, better electronics accessibility. If you spend more time, lesser amount of time in accessing these, it's also great. And we reduce the amount of needed water connections with the same functionality. And as you all might know, digitalization is becoming increasingly important in laboratory environments. What customers need are simple, reliable ways to access and transfer data. At the same time, we expect costs related to data management and compliance to increase drastically in the future. That's why we focus on providing straightforward, user-friendly digital solutions that make data handling as easy as possible. All of our Expert Line machines come with Wi-Fi ex-factory. Many variants in the world also come with an equipped LAN connection, and we can provide the Miele Move Connect. But more about that maybe in a different webinar. In many laboratories, we still see very old machines in operation, often sometimes like in a museum. A lot of machines from previous generations. And even if these machines are still technically working, it can absolutely make sense to replace them at a certain point of time. Because newer systems are significantly more efficient in terms of water, energy, and process performance, which leads to real cost savings over time. For you, I brought two examples today. So with the introduction of the PG8583 as a successor of the G78 series, we were able to save between 27 and 63% of water, depending on the machine variant, by just using the program Universal, which is really often used in the lab range. And with the launch of our newest lab washer, the Expert Line, we even managed to offer further reductions in water and energy consumption just with a little longer running time with the program standard echo. Of course, with the same reliability and efficiency as the common standard program. They're cut from the same cloth, you could say, but yet they are fundamentally different. While there are still similarities, there are also a lot of differences. This applies especially to the control systems, to the drying concepts, and to program optimization. Overall, efficiency has improved significantly. At the same time, customers benefit from high compatibility. For example, when it comes to accessories, making the transition to a new system very smooth and cost efficient. And of course, it's not just knowing about our own products. We also closely monitor the market and our competitors. Many marketing claims can be made quickly, but what matters is being able to stand behind those claims. And we are confident in saying that our systems are leading in key areas such as water consumption, chemical usage, and of course the overall cleaning performance. Finally, a quick look at centralized versus decentralized glassware processing. Both approaches have their advantages, depending on the size of the lab, the volume of glassware, and the required turnaround times. This is actually a topic we cover in more detail in a dedicated webinar. So if you're interested, it's definitely worth taking a deeper look there. And as you might have known so far, we do not have just small machines, we also have quite large machines, which means that we could offer a full portfolio for decentralized and centralized reprocessing. And you can see on this slide and the next one that the machines mainly differentiate in terms of chamber size or the given capacities. The capacity is usually quite linked to the maximum number of loading levels, which you can see in the small machines is usually 2. And then starting with the Streamlined PLW 7111, we go over to 3 loading levels, which might lead you, for example, to a capacity for 108 250 milliliter lab bottles. Or as another example, we could see that we can reprocess up to 588 vials in one of the larger PLW 8650 machines.
Internally, we really focus on optimal cost efficiency for our customers. And for this, we have the so-called TCO tool. And this tool has different functions. The tool obviously compares the total cost of ownership for different device types. In addition, it is possible to compare the total CO2 footprint in the usage phase. Here I would like to mention the next webinar, which is called Sustainable Lab Glassware Processing. Another feature is the comparison of automated with manual cleaning. And to demonstrate this, we will later on show you an example calculation where we compare automated versus manual cleaning. But before we come to this, I want to show you which costs do we consider. The first one is the initial investment costs for the device and also for our accessories. Then we have the personnel costs, we have the chemical costs, energy costs, and we also consider service costs in our calculator. When we take into account all of these different costs, we then have such a graph. And this graph shows the cost development over 8 years. And if we now look at the gray line, this represents manual cleaning. We see very low initial costs, but over time, the costs add up, mainly because of personnel costs and also process chemicals. Now let's turn to the red line. This represents automatic cleaning. And here the initial investment is higher for the lab pressure and also for the accessories. But once this is installed, the operating costs rise much slower than for manual cleaning. And now we can take a look at the point where both of these lines cross. And this is after about 1.6 years. And that means that the investment pays off in less than 2 years and continues saving money for the rest of the product's lifetime. And I think that's a very nice way to wrap this up. And now we have some time for Q&A. If there are some questions.
Join you, Simon. Thank you. So we just heard that there are obviously no open questions at the moment. That is okay for us, and I would like to use the opportunity and make you aware of this nice brochure here. It's called the AK Lab brochure. AK Lab is, let's say, a co-production of several companies, which are namely Dr. Weigert, Duran Wheaton Kimball, DWK, for lab glasses, and of course us, Miele, and a business unit professional. And this brochure features quite a lot of interesting topics that are linked to reprocessing lab glassware. I just pick one random page, and you see a lot of hints about process chemicals to be used in the different process steps for pre-cleaning, cleaning, neutralization, and you see a list of possible contaminations. One thing that is very often being asked is, for example, how to remove marker labelings, and there's a clear guide on how to do so. A very informative brochure available at the donut link. And Simon, maybe you might want to add something.
Yes, so we are almost through for today, but it's not the end of the story. So if you have given your consent during the registration process to be contacted again by us, you will receive a certificate from us by email. Anyone who hasn't agreed yet can now put their email address in the chat to receive this certificate. The second point here is that you can get more information, as Dennis already mentioned, in the AK Lab brochure. You can download it via QR code or the link, which is also posted in the chat right now. The AK Lab brochure is available in different languages. It's available in German, in English, in French, and also in Spanish. And as I said in the beginning, the recording of this webinar will be made available via YouTube by mid of May on our Miele professional YouTube channel. And now there's the last point. For any open questions, or if you would like to receive more information on our lab washers or also on our accessories, please contact your local dealer or your Miele representative. And finally, I would like to remind you about the next editions of our webinar series. The next one will be in June, and the topic is Sustainable Solutions, Best Practices for Eco-Friendly Glassware Cleaning. Then in August, we have the topic Ensuring Safe Lab Practices, Key Strategies for Laboratory Glassware Safety. Then in October, we have the topic How Clean is Clean, Defining and Measuring True Glassware Cleanliness. And in December, we have the topic Mastering Glassware Cleaning in Pharmaceutical Labs. So please feel free to sign up for the upcoming webinars. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.